I will call to order the Wilsonville City Council, September 9th, 2021 at 7:15 p.m. And I would like to ask the city recorder to call the roll, please.
Councillor Linville.
Here.
Councillor West.
Here.
Council President Ockervall.
Here.
Councillor Lehan.
Here.
Mayor Fitzgerald.
Here. And can the city manager please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion to approve the order of agenda?
Mayor, before you entertain a motion, can I have you amend the agenda to add under Mayor's business item B, redistricting discussion?
Yes, that is a very good point. Sorry that I couldn't connect with you between the meetings.
Yeah, I was trying to call you, but that's what I was going to ask you if it was okay, so.
Could I have a motion to amend the agenda to include the redistricting discussion under Mayor's business?
Is that two different motions or one?
Just one.
Council President Ockervall.
Make a motion to approve the amended agenda as described previously.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Council, motion is moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. May I, so we've taken care of that. So briefly, why don't we start with that item, if we could, please?
Mark's on his way up here.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members, Mark Otnet, Public and Government Affairs Director for the city. And the topic is redistricting. The Oregon Legislature, the Senate and House committees on redistricting have released plans for congressional districts in Oregon and state legislative districts. Oregon will be gaining a new 6th congressional seat this year due to population increases, most of which have been in the South Portland Metro and North Willamette Valley region. I am going to share a screen here and bring up a few salient items pertaining to the proposals. Right now, staff is in effect offering you 2 recommendations regarding these plans. One would be to choose the Congress Plan A along with the State Legislative Plan A, in that they reflect a similar theme of having Wilsonville become more involved in the Washington County region, the South County region, but also extending down the Willamette Valley to Salem and into Polk County and Yamhill. This is a bit different in that we don't have as much relationship traditionally with Washington County in terms of funding mechanisms as we do per se through Clackamas County, where our seat at JPACT is determined by the majority of population of Wilsonville, which the majority of population resides in Clackamas County. This proposal then, this is the proposal A for the Congress plan, and then what we'll do here is briefly look at the plan for Plan B. And Plan B essentially takes in all of Clackamas and Marion counties with some division along South Salem and segmenting West Salem from Salem. I'm not sure how Salem feels about this at the time. And this district would keep us in alignment with more of Clackamas County in terms of Wilsonville, Oregon City, Lake Oswego, West Lynn, and other cities that participate in the C4 Metro Subcommittee that make recommendations to JPAC on federal funding. The corresponding plans for the House districts then, let me switch to that. I guess I'll have to stop screen sharing here for a moment. Okay, oops, I guess I don't see it on the, oh, did we have it up? To the Oregon House and Senate discussion.
Staff report.
It's the goes down below her. Oh, there it is. Okay, I got it. You got it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the assistance finding the document here. Okay, so I'll do screen share again. House Plan A, which corresponds to the Congress Plan A, the House Plan basically keeps the existing House District 26 in much of its current configuration in the sense that Wilsonville and Sherwood are united together. And the Senate district that corresponds to that includes the House district plus Tigard, the city of Tigard. So that would be Senate District 13 as part of Plan A. The Plan B is also then corresponding to the Congress Plan A. So this creates a new District 24 that, rather than including Sherwood, lumps Wilsonville with Newburgh and extends down the valley. The corresponding Senate plan includes the new House district plus the district to the south of that, which extends down to Kaiser. So this Plan B is Kaiser, Newburgh, Wilsonville, and includes much of French Prairie. So it depends on what kind of vision the council sees for the community in terms of where we would go in terms of our representation. All of these maps place Wilsonville on the edge in terms of the congressional boundaries. And so in some ways, none of them are really ideal, perhaps, for keeping with our communities of interest that are nearby. So staff has a hard time making one recommendation to you, and we're very much interested in hearing what you would like to do. There is a time limit in that if we wish to submit testimony, written or oral, it must be by September 13th, which is the last day for testimony to be taken. There is indications that the Senate and House committees will be deadlocked and will not be able to agree on a final map. There's a high likelihood that Secretary of State will then be called to actually create the final sets of maps. Whatever maps are created will be subject to appeal to the Oregon Supreme Court, which will be the ultimate arbiter. At this time, that's kind of the end of this short impromptu staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any notes.
I need to bring up the hand raised thing. Sorry, it's not visible right now. While I do that, I just wanted to ask if, in looking at some of the original information we had, was that we had identified that we wanted to meet the criteria. Well, of course, there is Oregon Revised Statute 188 criteria that says, I believe the city would ideally want to be contiguous and completely included in the district, that it would utilize existing geographic or political boundaries, and it does not divide communities of common interest, and it is connected by transportation links, including I-5 local streets and Wilsonville smart public transportation. Do any of those options fly in the face of those worse than others?
There are some minor, all of the plans do keep most of the existing city whole, including Charbonneau. However, there are a couple of plans that omit either urban reserve areas such as Frog Pond East, or there's a couple of them that omit urban reserves to the north or UGB expansion areas of the city. Basically, that would be in a separate congressional district. Right now, Wilsonville is in 2 congressional districts. It follows the county line. In the Washington County section, we have Representative Bonamici, Congress District 1, and south of the Washington County line in Clackamas County, we have Congressman Schrader, Congressional District number 5. So, while it may be desirable for the city to be in 1 congressional district, the reality is that we have been able to work well in 2 districts. And in fact, it may be having access to a second member of Congress is perhaps better than even 1. Congresswoman Bonamici, while Wilsonville is not considered one of her core cities, she has made multiple visits to Wilsonville, including to Oregon Tech, and to attend SMART ceremonies, and she's very conscious of SMART. So I don't necessarily know if, other than we would want to request minor amendments, and whatever testimony we did, we would request that our future urban growth expansion areas be included in the same district. Now, whether or not that request will be honored is a whole nother subject, perhaps.
I am wondering if any of the counselors would like to make a comment on this very complex prospect before us. Councilor Lehan?
I have been through this before, and it never comes out quite the way hasn't in the past come out the way we would like it to. I personally, as Mark was saying, don't see a problem with having 2, with being split, and it has worked to our advantage multiple times to have more than 1 state senator, more than 1 state legislator, representative, and Congress is another issue. But I do think that it's important for us to be with a community that is a community of interest, which is to say that the majority of Wilsonville should be with Sherwood, Tualatin, or West Lynn, because that's who we have the most involvement with. Preferably West Lynn because of our school district situation, but those are communities of interest. When they stuck us before with Gaston and Kaiser, and we're like, where are they? I haven't been to Gaston. That makes it. That makes it tough to develop a cohesive community of interest like we could, for instance, with West Lynn or even Tualatin or Sherwood, because we have a lot of engagement with those communities. So that's my opinion. I'm more interested in which communities we are tied with than that we don't get split, because I think there are sometimes advantages to having that extra legislator.
And we are looking at taking advantage of the opportunity to testify. Councilor Linville.
I would just like to agree with Councilor Lehan. I think from my perspective that as we look at the districts, especially those that are contiguous within Clackamas County, I think that is a better fit for us than it is for Kaiser, say, you know, in that area. Charbonneau's always been very much outside and not involved. I mean, we've been with Canby, Kaiser, Salem, so it's, when you talk about communities of interest, that's really, that really has not, there's not been anything. And I think given transportation issues, given freeway issues where we could really use support both federally and within the state legislature, I think those communities of interest are probably ones where we could garner a lot more support.
If I may, based on those comments, and which is true that the city council indicated a preference for being with Westland, followed by Sherwood or Tualatin, House Plan B and Senate Plan B do not place Wilsonville with any of those communities. Based on these comments, we would probably eliminate support for both House Plan B and Senate Plan B.
And Councilor West, you're muted.
Thank you, sorry. I think I'm in agreement. Can I just see the maps really quick again between on B and, thank you, Mark, I appreciate that. So the congressional,
I'll bring up Congressional Plan B.
thank you. So the congressional plan, does that keep most, in a congressional seat, does that keep most of Wilsonville and Charbonneau together also in this congressional seat?
The answer is yes and no.
Yeah.
Charbonneau is included, however, the boundary follows the county line, and so you can see where the Basalt Creek and Coffee Creek urban expansion, UGB areas, and the North Elgin, South Elgin urban reserve potential expansion areas would be outside in Congressional District 1, as is the current situation.
Okay. But it tends to take in most of Clackamas County where the bulk of our population is. And then, but Sherwood would be just as it already still is outside of the, okay. But Oregon City, yeah, I think that's B. I tend to, for congressional, I agree with that. That seems like a cohesive community that we associate with naturally anyways, in a lot of different, ways. So that I tend to agree with the rest of the council on that, their comments.
So it sounds like Mr. Ottenod, do you have other questions about how we would, what you've heard today? Does this give us enough to work on some testimony for September 13th?
Yes, I guess the only question might be is if you had any thought between House and Senate Plan A versus House and Senate Plan C. A and C are similar. However, A takes in a bit more land south of Wilsonville, so let me jump to those real quickly. So again, here's House Plan A, where basically we have Sherwood with Wilsonville, and then Tigard is up in the next district, which together form one Senate district. And then we'll jump down to Plan C. And Plan C takes in Sherwood, Wilsonville. However, you can see that it does not take in anything south of Charbonneau, and instead goes north up towards Shoal. And then the Senate Plan C keeps Shoal and Tigard in the district without, again, going any further south. So at the time, staff was thinking that it might be preferable from the city council's perspective to take in land south of Charbonneau down to the county boundary since we seem to have an interest in lands south of Wilsonville to some degree.
So now we're comparing C and A.
Correct.
Does 26 keep it pretty much the same, but most that change is south and not north? Am I understanding that correctly? And the one that looks like it follows that, the lands south of us along I-5 there?
Yeah, basically, Plan A, just as you said, takes a bit of land in south of us, and rather than going north as far as shoals, and so again, we'll jump back to Plan C. Plan C, rather than taking in some land south of us and to the west of Wilsonville, takes in more of the shoals and unincorporated area north of Sherwood.
A is better.
Which one's A again?
This one.
Yeah, where we go south and then we have that the land issues.
And west, because west is, we're headed west of Bilbao.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But does that cover Aurora?
No, none of these cover Aurora, except for the congressional district.
Yeah, okay, you're right. Oh, I see. But 26 is that land south, which we're always engaged in.
Mm-hmm, to some degree. Mm-hmm.
But where does B go? Could we look at B, just one quick?
Mm-hmm. B goes way west and way south.
Yeah, we don't want B.
Yeah.
Is there a significant difference in the amount of unincorporated acreage between A and C?
Did not do an acreage count. However, the population counts have to be pretty similar.
It's all based on population.
Population is what drives it.
Or population,
Yeah.
so it's fairly equal?
Yes, exactly.
Have to be equal.
The one thing what we would do is we would basically request in our testimony that, like if we choose Plan A, that the Frog Pond East and South would be added to the boundary. And given that there's very little population, this would probably be an easy request to be accommodated.
Because that most likely to be done on C, like the one that looks like the most similar to what we already have, but a little more.
What we have right now follows the, in terms of District 26, this is closer to what we currently have, yes.
But it just goes a little more south, and we'd ask to include Frog Pond East and South, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That sounds like a very reasonable request, is to add Frog Pond East and South and go with A and adjust it with that minor piece. And like you say, it's not a big population shift at this point, so that should be a reasonable request.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Minor request.
I would agree.
Great. So what staff is hearing right now is support for House and Senate Plan A and Congress Plan B. Would that be?
What does the Senate plan look like for A?
The Senate plan
How does the Senate look?
The Senate plan for A basically takes us up to Tigard. Both Plan A and Plan C take us up to Tigard, with Plan C adding more of the Shoals area.
So that's a significant demographic shift going into that deep in the Tigard.
Yes.
So I may disagree with the rest of the council, but I don't, that 26 I don't have a problem with, but I'm not a fan of the Senate seat. But that's just my opinion.
We're looking at B, right?
This is Senate Plan A right now, the Senate district. I'll bring up Senate Plan C, and this is Senate Plan C, where instead of going further south and a bit west of Wilsonville, it goes further north into the Shoals area.
Yeah.
Which one does 26 fit in, the one that we all like, the House seat?
That was Plan A, I believe.
That's for the House seat, not for the Senate.
Here's-
Oh, I see. That's the House seat, and then you can see that other arm, that's 35 would be the other half.
Yes,
So
correct.
26 and 35 would make up the Senate seat.
Correct. So both plans basically take us north to Tigard.
I'm not, yeah, I mean, I may just, the council may disagree with me, but I'm not interested in a Senate seat that goes deep into Tigard.
Unfortunately, those are our only options.
Yeah, I don't think there's a choice.
There's not a choice on that, yeah.
Unless you go all the way to C, that's a different choice, right, for a Senate seat?
It's somewhat similar.
Confusing, like congressional and the Senate.
Okay.
Senate C also has Tigard.
Yeah, Senate C is a bad one because it's like we had the boomerang, a long string thing.
Wasn't there a Senate seat that went south?
This isn't it.
Yes, that was the one that we decided, or the council indicated lack of a preference for, because it goes down to Kaiser.
Yeah, we don't need Kaiser.
I guess we just need a consensus. We don't all have to agree.
What I gather, though, that it sounds like the majority of council is favoring House and Senate Plan A and Congress Plan B, if I'm correct?
Right.
Yes.
Yes, because you can't choose House Plan A and Senate Plan B.
Correct.
It has to be House and Senate Plan A or House and Senate Plan B.
Yeah, they fit
Whereas
together.
Congress is a different animal altogether.
Okay, I
Two of them are joined at the hip.
we got what we need?
Yep.
I think so.
So you can develop some testimony for the mayor, and I'm assuming that this means that whatever Mark comes up with and the mayor agrees to, that the rest of council's fine with the mayor delivering that testimony. Or submitting.
And we'll cross our fingers on the Frog Pond East thing.
That's what we'll be asking for.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, I think we got what we need, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will move into the mayor's business. Hope everybody had a nice Labor Day and a little break there. Our council meetings slowed down a little bit for August, which was a nice for everybody. On a serious note, I just wanted to comment about the seriousness of the Delta variant and how our healthcare workforce is so heavily overtaxed. Every single person who works in that system, I'm just feeling really feel their exhaustion, and the road ahead looks really difficult. And certainly people in business or schools, every single person is impacted by this ongoing dreadful pandemic. And I wanted to say that personally, I think that every person has a role in ending the pandemic. And I want to just say that this is a chance for everyone to move toward solutions and problem solving and move away from divisiveness and see what we can do to stop the next version of the variant from coming forth. So I'm hoping we can see better results soon, and thank everybody who's been working so hard to protect people from this virus. Our next city council meeting is Monday, September 20th. So put that on your calendars. We have a lot of meetings coming up that are noted in the packet. I won't go through all of those. Recently, we had our city block party, and I saw some of the counselors there, and I wanted to thank the city staff and Parks and Recreation for organizing it. It was great to see some businesses who had food trucks and really just people visiting and just having a really lovely evening. So we heard a lot of good things about that. Of course, we had the good safety and health protocols and seemed to get a very good feedback on that. So as summer has been winding down, there have been a few less meetings than usual. And this is a chance that I do report to the council on some of the things that I've been going to. Just keeping it brief, met with the Washington County Board of Commissioners about the increased hospitalizations due to the COVID-19 Delta variant and its effects on our communities. Also had a meeting with some Clackamas County mayors and the county commission chair, and we discussed a range of issues, including the pandemic and some housing issues. In fact, just today I met with another group of mayors from the area about the homelessness issue. And also the Metro Supportive Housing Services Bond and how that can be of use. I do talk to citizens about, what are we doing? What can we do in Wilsonville, a city our size, to work on that problem and the people impacted by it. And one of the things that comes to mind first is the importance of the role that Clackamas County plays in providing social services to the city of Wilsonville and other cities like us in Clackamas County. Clackamas County does have a revenue line coming from the Metro Supportive Housing Bond that would be available to City of Wilsonville. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plan comes up, how it develops, and so that we can find out how we can do the best job possible of taking advantage of those services to, again, here's another huge problem that we have in our state, in our region, which is homelessness. It's a huge, pervasive problem that needs attention right away. And so I'm looking forward to seeing soon what some of the concrete steps are that we can coordinate better with Clackamas County. So recently, the Clackamas County Housing Authority issued a request for proposals, and that was interrupted or pulled back and restarted, and I think they have just recently reissued these proposals that would request for proposals to nonprofit organizations and that are experts at attending to the homelessness issue and providing wraparound services and essentially helping stabilize people and get them out of that. So I've been talking with the city manager. You heard the city manager mention this a little bit at the last meeting. And so I just want everybody to know that we'll be talking more about it, and I look forward to having some more robust discussions. As you heard, there is going to be a chance to testify for the Senate and House committees on redistricting here later in the month. We will also be having another meeting about congestion pricing. This is going to be to discuss issues and tolling and congestion pricing with JPAC member City Council President Kathy Heisey from Milwaukee, and Metro Councilor Christine Lewis will be presenting a panel on that with the C4 Metro Subcommittee that Councilor Linville attends. I'm having a meeting coming up soon with the Charbonneau Country Club leadership, and I just want to listen and learn about issues of concern that they have pertaining to traffic, some of the things we discussed today, the Aurora State Airport, and other matters. And there are a number of other meetings coming up. Always more opportunities to go to meetings. As we heard, we were all looking forward to the League of Oregon Cities meeting with lots of good educational programs, but due to the pandemic, that has been canceled. So I'm sure they will offer some other alternatives through education programs through Zoom. With that, that concludes my mayor's business, and I will move to the communications section of our agenda. And I would like to welcome the Wilsonville Boons Ferry Historical Society CEP report for about a 15-minute presentation, including question and answer.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor. This evening we have Susan Schenk from the Wilsonville
Wilsonville Boons Ferry Historical Society, and she will be sharing one of the presentations from our recent Community Enhancement Program projects, and you will notice that in the future you will see more of these as a way to be more transparent about how we are spending the community enhancement funds. So this is the first of many presentations. The Wilsonville Boons Ferry Historical Society has had a few of these projects, so you will see a number of those. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan. So take it away.
Thank you. My name is Susan Schenk, and I am the Vice President of the Wilsonville Boons Ferry Historical Society. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but that's what our name is. It's a group of volunteers. And we received this grant. It was our second Community Enhancement Program grant. And this one, the funding started in July of 2019. We got off to a good start, and then COVID, but we did manage to wrap it up by the due date, which was July of 2021. Next slide. So this is a picture of our little museum, which is in the attic of the library. And this is what the inventory looked like before we started the project. The money funded our efforts to organize the artifacts in a long-term project. Our ultimate goal is to use our artifacts to educate the community about our history and to also draw into the society people and objects of interest that are languishing somewhere that could be shown in put in our archives. But we weren't ready to accept any donations until we had a good management system. So next slide, please. So this is our archivist that we hired with some of the funds. She sorted the artifacts into 5 categories and assigned collection numbers. So she managed to tag 523 items despite COVID, which really limited her access to the artifacts. It's not something she could do from home. Okay, next. So these were the 5 collections that she came up with. There are a lot of scrapbooks, which are not in terrific shape, but they're there. There are items from the Aiden store. There was a very large collection of International Order of Oddfellows and Rebecca memorabilia and ceremonial items. There's a Walt Morey collection, and then everything else fell into general historical. There's a picture there of some of the artifacts with their tags on them, and every tag corresponds to a fact sheet, and then the fact sheets were all entered into a database. Next slide. So we purchased a museum-recognized collections management database program, and the archivist entered about half of the items from the collection sheets into the database before she really got shut down because of COVID. Next slide. We had the Wilsonville Photography Club and the High School Photo Club take some professional quality pictures of about 20% of the artifacts, which can be uploaded to the database. This we did in February, right before the COVID shutdown, so we only got about 20% of the items photographed. Next. So all the artifacts were handled, they were lightly cleaned, they were stored. Some are stored in archival wrappings, which were paid for by this and our previous Community Enhancement Project grant. Hazardous items were isolated. There were a lot of bottles from the Aiden store that had dubious chemicals in them, so those have all been separated. So there's some volunteers from the Historical Society looking at some of the artifacts. They helped out when we were doing the photography. Next. So these are things which we were not able to do, which we hope to be able to do in the future, and that is to complete the remaining items, putting them in the database. We want to finish photographing the objects. Some of the objects need more cleaning than we were able to give them. We have a number of boxes of odds and ends which need to be sorted. We need to order more archival storage boxes and materials and repack some of the artifacts. We, as a board, are voting on returning some of the artifacts to appropriate museums. For example, there's there's some damaged blueprints that probably more appropriately belong to the state mental hospital system. All the Oddfellow or Rebecca items are not really Wilsonville specific, so we're finding new homes for those. We will continue to refine our collections management plan so that we can ask the public to continue to donate items. We have to de-accession some of the artifacts we don't have a history of or are obviously not related to Wilsonville history. And we'd like to develop opportunities to exhibit some of the artifacts. Okay, next slide. We did have one small exhibit in the Clackamas County office buildings with some of our artifacts. There's a picture of it. And we're looking for more opportunities to show off a little bit. Our database will be searchable in the future. It's not complete because we just ran out of time, but our archivist is coming back on a new grant to work with our photographs, which were not included in this grant. Okay, next slide. So we really thank you for the ongoing support that we have to our little volunteer-run organization, and our goal is to preserve, to celebrate, and to educate about Wilsonville's unique history. And I did bring one item from our artifacts. So here's this little tag, and if you were a farmer in the Willamette Valley in the 1930s, you would know exactly what this was, and you would be so happy. This would be like a golden chalice, because as electricity was expanded out to rural areas, farmers realized that they could use electricity to irrigate their fields. This was a sprinkler system designed by Cy Young, was manufactured in Wilsonville. It has Wilsonville, Oregon right here on the label. And it was part of a huge effort to irrigate land to increase the productivity of farms. But people thought that, well, Oregon, you don't need to irrigate, you get a lot of rain there, but you don't get the rain when you need it. The rain is the wrong time of the year for most farmers. So this is called Jupe's Pal, Jupe', because Jupiter was the god of rain, thunder, lightning, and storms. And so if you wanted to have him as a pal for your irrigation, you would have one of these sprinklers. So that's just one idea of an artifact. We need to do a lot more research on what we have. Are there any questions?
Go ahead, any questions? Council President Aukerball.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. This was very interesting to see the work that's been done. And I was particularly delighted to hear about the photography club and the high school students that were able to contribute to some of this work by taking the photographs. I know that everyone's work processes have changed this last year, and had to change. And so this may not be feasible under our current circumstance, but in the future, I wonder if there's hopes or plans to further involve some of these other groups in the work. It seems like it would be a great educational opportunity for those high school students too.
Actually, the community enhancement grant that we have that just started in July of 2021, it's a 2-year grant, involves the Historical Society working with high school students to collect oral histories of people who have lived through this last 2 years of social unrest, equity issues, the COVID, the upheaval, the political unrest, and with the idea that history is being made all the time. It's not just something that happened a long time ago. So that is our grant that we're just starting, and it's going to be run by the former editor of the Wilsonville Spokesman, Leslie Hull, who is also a member of the board of the Historical Society. So that's what we're doing. There's only about 5 of us, and Councilor Lehan is one of our most enthusiastic members. So
well, thank you. Councilor Lehan has a comment, I think, or question.
Yeah. I would say I think Susan did an excellent job of presenting, and I didn't realize she was planning to bring Jupe's pals along to the program. But Cy Young was my grandfather, and those were produced in Wilsonville. They had very nice brass. All those tops are brass. And the other thing about them is they were designed to sprinkle not in a circle, but in a square. They sprinkled in a square so that you could get all of your field sprinkled without waste. You see how that works? Anyway, they were on display for a long time at the Oregon Historical Society in Portland, as you know, one of the productions of the Willamette Valley. But a lot of people, old families, have buckets of these out in out in the outbuildings around Wilsonville, because they tested a lot of Jupe's pals around here. So.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, Susan. It was wonderful, and thank you for transforming the shelves full of items that really needed organization.
We're still fairly limited with our access to the artifacts because it is in a storage area of the library, and I know the library is not real happy with us spending much time there because it's not really a workspace. So we are looking for other places where we could keep some of the artifacts, or at least have our archivist work, especially on the photography, for the next grant. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming to meet with us today. And I would like to now invite PGE, our colleagues from PGE, to speak about the PGE outage discussion.
I think he did a press conference.
Yeah, I saw it.
Not us, though.
Is it for the private sector?
Hi there. Good evening.
Do you think he wants to go?
Mayor Fitzgerald and councilors, thanks for having us back. I know last time we were here, we tried to answer some of your questions, but we didn't dive quite deep enough. So this time I brought one of our engineers and as well as our vegetation manager with me so that we can go just dive deeper and answer as many questions as you have. I am going to give a quick overview of the storm and kind of what we were dealing with. I know we're running a little late, so I'll try to make that quick, and then I'll let Ken Spencer, our Principal Operations Customer Engineer, go into your service and how Charbonneau and Old Town are served and our backups and all of that, and then Alex will be able to talk about the vegetation management, and then we can have questions as well. So I'll share my screen. So we may have shown this last time, but it bears repeating that whenever we have a major event like this kind of storm, we have these 7 steps of restoration. 1, to protect public safety, 911 centers, hospitals, any down power lines. We check our generation facilities, make sure we're able to get power to where it needs to be, repair transmission lines, substations, and down the line. So we try to get as many customers on at once as we can. And I kind of like to give an analogy like the tree. So the trunk of the tree, we get as many people on, and then we go out from there into the distribution lines, into the neighborhoods, and then from there to individual tap lines if you're way out in the country and you have your own tap line off the line.
Tiffany?
So unfortunately,
Tiffany?
you're out in the country.
Tiffany,
Yeah.
Are you doing a share screen right now, or are you having a presentation? Because we don't see anything.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I totally thought that was just me that couldn't see something, so sorry.
There we go.
How's that? There it is.
Thank you.
Hey.
Sorry about that. We use Teams at PGE, so this is a new platform. Sorry about that. So it's just our 7 steps of restoration. We talk about that quite often. We also prepare for outages all year long, constantly. So it's not just a one-time thing when we hear a storm's coming, we try to get ready for it, which we do. But we have a robust tree trimming program. We do inspections. We are constantly trying to improve our system. It's a 130-year-old system, so we're trying new technologies, replacing old equipment, things like that. We have agreements in place for mutual aid with other utilities. It kind of goes back and forth. So we just sent a few crews down to New Orleans a couple weeks ago when they had the storm. So we do a lot of preparedness ahead of time. Let me see if we can get this to advance now. There we go. So during the February storm, this picture is in Old Town, Wilsonville. I'm sure you all saw most of the damage around the area. We have a little over 881,000 meters in our service territory. During that storm, we had over 600,000 meters out. So well over half of our customers experienced outages over that 3-day ice period. Some of the outages were 30 minutes and some of them were 10 days. We had 7% of our transmission lines out. Transmission lines serve our substations, which then serve distribution lines going out into the neighborhoods. And we had 18 substations out, which is 10% of our substations. This picture at the bottom is all of the crews that we had sent in from other areas. We had them congregating at Chemeketa Community College down in Salem. That was kind of where we prepped them, where we had safety meetings, where we fed them, where they could take a nap, things like that. But it was a big deal. We had 400 crews by the second week, more than any time in our 130-year history. So I just wanted to give you kind of an understanding of how big this storm was compared to, what we're used to. In Wilsonville, we have a little over 14,000 meters that are served by 2 different substations. We didn't have too many issues off the Coffee Creek substation, but the Wilsonville substation, that's the one that serves down to Old Town and then beyond that to Charbonneau, and we'll go into that in a little more detail. So out of the 14,000 meters, 6,650 meters in Wilsonville alone experienced outages. So, and the majority of those were in Old Town and Charbonneau. Okay, I'll let Ken Spencer speak to this slide, our engineer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. So the slide that you're looking at is a map of the feeders that supply the south end of Wilsonville as well as the Charbonneau area. And you can see the Charbonneau area kind of right in the middle of the map. The green line is actually the route of the feeder as it comes down from the red circle on the top, which is Wilsonville sub, and over from the right, which is the Canby sub. The primary feed heads underground under the freeway and heads a little ways over down along Boons Ferry and hits, pops up, basically in front of Rite Aid. And so then it's overhead for most of the distance all the way to being in front of Charbonneau. There's another little spot that goes underground where the intersection is at Wilsonville Road and Boons Ferry. Anyway, so And then the Canby feeder you can see is the green coming the other direction. It kind of follows Arndt Road as it goes over and hits Airport Road and up. The thing to know about this is that both the primary and the backup services to these areas were out because because the Canby substation was out, but also the of course the Charbonneau feeder was out that comes out of Wilsonville, and it was all due to the same thing. It was due to the ice. I visited the one spot actually down near the Canby substation, and I had never seen transmission lines laying on the ground and poles that were snapped like that, and that's what we saw. Anyway, so but the thing to note, and that Alex will talk about in a minute, is the fact that the area that was most impacted by the ice is, of course, the overhead area, and that was in Old Town, and as it goes across the river and it heads towards Charbonneau. The reason it's been there many years, it was built a long time ago, and so while the Charbonneau development itself has underground distribution system, the lines that feed it actually are, which are just out there on it's Miley Road, right? On Miley Road, that's where the overhead is, and so that's the reason for the major impact. The other thing to note about this, actually, can you go down to slide 7, Tiffany?
Sure. Maybe. There you go.
There we go. The thing that we added this map from last time, and the thing I wanted to show you here was it's kind of a little more of a view a little bit further south. Actually, it's not highlighted here, but that's okay. One of the things that we've done is, these are future upgrades for Canby, but it's also to talk about what we've done most recently. Just south of the river, as the road heads west towards Butteville, we have added a device called a recloser, which wasn't there during the storm. What this device does is it basically looks for and responds to things like ice and branches falling on lines, and if certain conditions occur, it will open up like a switch, and it will turn off the line as it heads out towards Butteville. And had the device, it was in the planning stages when the ice storm hit, and we since finished the installation, so that while it wasn't there for this ice storm, for the next ice storm, because we all know that it's always the next thing, it will be there, and we won't see the same impact from Butteville Road ice damage of impacting the entire feeder. There may be other things that impact the entire feeder, but this new device that is on Butteville Road will help to isolate Butteville Road from the rest of the feeder as it heads towards Charbonneau. The other thing that we are doing in order to help with system hardening is there is planning actually in place now to increase, to actually probably combine the Canby substation and the Fargo substation. Fargo is the one that's just north of Donald. It kind of sits out where nobody really kind of sees it, but with a larger, a modern, built to new standards substation that would have more capacity, more resiliency to deal with the issues as they come forward. So we're doing that. One other piece that we are looking at doing in terms of system hardening is the line that comes from Canby. It comes across and turns north on Airport Road and heads up towards Miley. We are looking at actually increasing the capacity of those wires to help with capacity as the backup to the Charbonneau area. So let's see, I think that's all. Anyway, so I'll let Alex now talk about the forestry part of it and the tree trimming and all of that.
Yeah, thanks. So my name's Alex Knopka. I manage vegetation management for PGE, so it's the entire service territory. Let me grab this. This is probably what you're familiar seeing, right? Bucket trucks rolling through the area every few years, trimming clearances and keeping our overhead wires clear a vegetation conflict. The map you're looking at is a sample of data that was collected in late 2019, and it took several iterations of essentially like analysis and double checking algorithms and things like that. But what it's called is LiDAR, so it's a laser imagery. So PG had its entire system shot. So this shows essentially those same feeder lines. So if you're looking, I guess you're seeing I-5, you're seeing where it cuts, that line cuts across down low on the screen and then cuts over to the Charbonneau area. That would be the same thing that Ken showed. But what this is showing is essentially tree density by canopy. And so every single green circle you're seeing is a canopy that poses a conflict with our overhead line. And that is a conflict from a suppressed tree. So that's something that's growing directly underneath the line where we're constantly trimming the shelf is what we call it. That grows up into the conductor, the side growth, or the overhang. And it also is showing trees that pose fall in or overstrike. And we have that parameter set to within 5 feet plus or minus. So it's any tree that poses a risk of falling into our line, either by crossing our line by 5 feet or within 5 feet. So these are all the trees that we have that we actively manage within the city of Wilsonville, around the Charbonneau area. And so as we're looking at this, I definitely want to pause for a second and acknowledge the fact that as we saw this ice storm roll through the service territory, there's several huge distinctions from a vegetation standpoint. And PGE is in a unique position to speak on this because we manage over 2.5 million trees throughout the entire service territory, which is, roughly 2/3 of the state's population. So we are one of the largest urban forestry managers out there. And from a vegetation standpoint, the type of mortality and destruction on the vegetation, especially when you're talking like Portland South, these are conditions that these trees have not seen in their entire growing cycle. And some of these 60, 80, 120-year second growth firs, things like that, where they're seeing ice loading that they're not, they weren't groomed for essentially over time, right? A lot of these trees that are shallow rooted, that are native to Oregon, they grow together, they share nutrients together. And as we see the ice storm move in several waves, right? It was a freeze-thaw cycle again, and again, 3 times through, especially Wilsonville South, that really caused significant tree mortality. And so this slide just kind of is showing where there's heavily forested populations. If you look down at the bottom right of the screen where that tie-in is, right, it's overhead. I drive that a handful of times when I play at Langdon Farms, and it's mostly clear, but once you cross I-5, it's heavily forested, and that crosses into Clackamas County proper, right? So that's kind of outside of your boundary where a lot of that heavily forested lands are. We are currently kind of on a road show with all the municipalities in Clackamas County. We did meet with Wilsonville earlier this month to kind of talk about the impacts of the ice storm, and then specifically from a vegetation management standpoint, what we've done, what we're doing, and what's being planned to improve system reliability from a veg perspective into the future. Perfect. This is like dovetails right into the next slide. So, all right. I showed you the bucket truck, so that is a baseline of any vegetation management program, right? Maintaining those clearances. What you've seen at any given point in time in the Wilsonville, Canby, Charbonneau area, we're going to have between 2 to 3 tree crews year-round moving through the map grids that make up that portion of our system. And they're trimming for standard clearances, which at the time of trim is about a 10-foot bubble around the conductor, the overhead line. As we move into so what we've already done since the ice storm, right? This is a unique in the sense that once power is restored, right, a lot of people think the job of a utility is done. However, from a vegetation management standpoint, that's when it just started for us. Because there were so many threats that were still left intact. So think hazard danger trees that were still standing that had yet to fail into our utility after we already restored or energized power. I think at 3 separate times, we energized over 200,000 customers, and then there was another freeze-thaw cycle and then another failure. So since the February ice storm, we've maintained about 30 tree crews in addition to what we already have. So I have about 140 tree crews currently. And so we've already completed the work through Wilsonville, through the Charbonneau area, and we've specifically looked for trees that are significantly off right-of-way, so think way outside the power lines, that failed during the ice storm but have yet to actually impact our infrastructure. So we wanted to get to that stuff before this next winter season so we can prevent a cascading failure of vegetation onto our infrastructure ahead of time. So we've already completed that effort kind of through your area. We're still working through aspects of our service territory, and we're hoping to wrap that up as we enter the fall storm season. Specific to long-term efforts, we are standing up, and this has been in the works for a while. It takes a lot of planning because with that LiDAR data that you saw, there is a significant opportunity to look at poor performance. So think people that are impacted with multiple outages, or whole feeders, right? The Charbonneau feeder, where there's poor performance throughout there. So a lot of vegetation interruptions, a lot of vegetation outages, whether it's impacting a small amount of people or a lot. There's different metrics to measure both, but we're looking at, from a vegetation perspective, how can we target the vegetation that we know fails the most? So in your area, think the very mature off right-of-way Douglas fir, the black cottonwood, the alder, the oak that's significantly off right-of-way where we see a lot of limb sale. So off the Doug fir, in a heavy wind event, so 35 miles an hour plus sustained from typically the east, you'll see those limbs float, right, 40, 50, 60 yards, and they look weightless. But when they crash onto our line, that's essentially a 3-4 inch caliper branch that's 30 feet tall. That could be planted in your front yard as a tree, and it's floating through the air, impacting our facility. Or you think of like the really mature deciduous that has the huge scaffolding limbs that in a storm that has codominance, so multiple tops or trunks, that poses a risk point on the tree. So we're using a lot of data from outages, from the LiDAR data you just saw, to look at how can we strategically harden our system in a data-led way to reduce the impacts of vegetation failure on our customers. So that program is going to be moving through the Wilsonville area in 2022 as well, and that's actually going to be an ongoing program to manage the fact that trees in our service territory are living organisms, and there's threats that exist under the lines, next to the lines, outside the lines. It's something that we have to manage in partnership together, and that was a huge focus of the meeting with the city of Wilsonville, was the partnership, because PGE is not a tree owner. On land that we own, on our substation property, yeah, certainly, but the trees that we manage from a line clearance perspective, we are not tree owners, so there's a lot of governance surrounding those, from local municipalities to the state that regulates us, and we are definitely put into a position where we have to perform and we have to work with our partners, and so that's been a huge effort throughout the service territory to work with our municipalities to come up with right tree, right place campaigns, strategic removal partnership and replanting campaigns, and such. So I'll pause there for any questions on the veg front.
I do have a question. On the Right Tree, Right Place campaign, is that going to be something that is going to be out in the public for private landowners to kind of join in with you on?
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor Fitzgerald. So I think it's kind of two prongs from your end. I believe there's a campaign that Tiffany's going to participate in much later, as you plan, I think, for the 2022 storm season around emergency preparedness, where certainly right place, right tree, right place, defensible space is going to be a topic, and we have a lot of information to share with you guys in terms of planting suggestions, not only for all voltage classifications, right? And so this is going to cover overhead and underground because there are vegetation implications with each, and we have revised recommendations from a utility perspective and a landscape architecture perspective that mind either urban canopy promotion, promotion of desirable species, elimination of nuisance species, flowering, shade bearing, things like that. We're also partnering with, Tiffany, you gotta help me out here. I think it's the city manager. I can't remember.
Public Works, yeah.
Public Works, okay. On an actual inclusion of right tree, right place into some more emergent campaigns. And so there's an opportunity to look at if we can partner on removing the right trees in the right places. Can we look at maybe a partnership with Friends of Trees or something like that to do a mass planting that's shade bearing somewhere else other than on the property, or that maybe is slightly outside of some of your existing tree code, so we can improve reliability, still promote the desirables, and get the shade percentage up for the city of Wilsonville, but not create an implication or a conflict with these.
Thank you.
Yes.
And as far as public outreach for emergency preparedness, you've probably seen the video that Maria Pope and Judy Smith created after the storm about being prepared with an emergency kit. So that's out there on YouTube. I also sent it to City of Wilsonville to make sure they were aware of it so they could post it on your website if wanted. I plan on participating in the Emergency Preparedness Fair next year, and we're happy to help with whatever else you'd like. So we're here, and we want to partner with you, and this was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime storm, unfortunately, but it did help us learn some things, especially in the vegetation area. And moving forward, we're just going to continue to improve in that area.
Thank you. I do see that Councillor Lehan has a question.
Yeah. Well, this has been a very helpful presentation about where the lines are coming in, where the issues were. There's a real distinction, though, for us between Old Town and Charbonneau, because Old Town was an expected vulnerability. We know we have a lot of overhead lines there and a lot of trees that would put those lines at risk. Charbonneau is 100% underground, and all of those lines coming in to Charbonneau are not under our purview. So the same as they're not under your purview, they're neither under our purview either. And they belong to the county, they belong to ODOT, they belong to whoever they belong to, but they're not ours. So we're not. It was not city trees that were the issue. Not that that's a big issue. It's just that we're not paying attention to them. So
we are.
However, we can harden the system. What we were looking to find out is, where are the weak points in the system that are outside our purview. And the issue with Charbonneau, and the reason we were so nervous, is that having emergency preparedness kits and everything is fine, but Charbonneau has an especially fragile population of a lot of people, or significant in senior assisted living, in hospice care, on medical devices. These this is a fragile population, many of them elderly living alone. And without power, they can't keep their medical devices going. There are a lot of things that start failing with that kind of population that is beyond the level of your average emergency kit that you see advertised. And it's not that we didn't have people out there, but But what we're trying to figure out is with that density of a fragile population or an at-risk population, we need to figure out why we had the failures we did and what we can do to harden the system or make it able to be back up and running faster. Because, and the other thing I feel like we have not gotten a response to is who is in charge of the generator requirements, because so far it seems to be no one. These large facilities are required to have generators, but there doesn't seem to be a capacity requirement or who is supervising that you indeed have that capacity, or that you have the fuel to run those generators. What is the plan for those facilities at the facility level, not at the individual level? That's another layer of protecting a vulnerable population. So
correct. And we have what's called medical certificates for some of our individual residential customers. And so we have a lot of literature to help them have a backup plan. Maybe they do need to have a generator to generate for their air or for their fridge or for something. We can't guarantee power. Things like this happen. We, as we discussed earlier, we do our best. We are 99.9% reliable, except for these major storms, and they're just out of our control, and we can't cut down every tree under our line, unfortunately.
No, all I'm saying is a lot of it is out of our control also, and yet we all feel some responsibility to these constituents.
Sure.
And when they are living in a group facility, especially, and the facility does not have the generating power to keep the facility above 55 degrees, now why is that? Because they had checked off on the thing that they did have emergency generating power, but it was only enough to keep the lobby at 60 degrees. I mean, where is the oversight is what I'm asking. If it isn't you and it isn't us.
Well, so you're scratching the itch on something that has been observed through the industry, especially on the West Coast since about 2018 with the Camp Fire down in Paradise, where from a business continuity or an emergency management standpoint, whether it be from a business emergency management or a municipal, like a community emergency management, whether it be a municipality, a county, whatever, state department, you're starting to see these overlays and these gaps. And I think that's a huge lesson that's coming out of California, which it's still unfolding right in front of our eyes as we speak, is where does a utility fit into that space in terms of guaranteeing power even in an outage situation to individual customers versus a customer's own modality and means with the generator, and where does municipal overlay come into that, and where does state come into that, or FEMA or other emergency
state licensing facilities have to have some responsibility also. So there's all these layers of responsibility, and it's easy for each of us to say, well, that wasn't under our purview, and that's not our responsibility, but there's still ultimately all of our constituents, and there's some gaps, and that's what was shown in the Charbonneau case, especially.
Sure. I know hospitals have rules that they have to have backup and they have to have it for so many days and things like that, and depending on the type of hospital, if it's a trauma hospital, things like that. A lot of them have double backup generators on our dispatchable standby generation program or alternate feeders coming in, and we have redundancy in our system, but this, again, was such a huge storm. We just can't prepare for this type of storm, or your rates would be higher than Hawaii's. But we do have resiliency plans. We just partnered with City of Beaverton and their new police station. They have solar on the roof. They have a backup generator, and we also installed as a pilot program a backup battery. So it's called a microgrid, basically, so they could run on their own off the grid at that police station. And that's kind of ideas that you might want to think about in Charbonneau. It's very expensive, but those are options. And as far as the facilities where several of the elderly people are residing, it's up to those facilities to have the backup for their residents. It sounds like they have the bare minimum to keep, the lights on, but it's really up to those facilities to have enough backup generation to handle it. I mean, we keep talking about this big earthquake that's coming, and it's not going to be days, it's going to be weeks. And, we're hardening our system as much as we can, but people have to prepare. Municipalities, people, organizations, whatever you want to call it, but we all have to prepare for that. And we do resiliency planning. We've gone through plans for what's going to happen if our World Trade Center, where our system control center is in the Willamette River after the big earthquake. We have 2 backup centers now built so that we can run our whole system from different locations, both on the east side and on the west side. We're working with emergency services. How do we get through? This was a problem during the ice storm as well. But our trucks couldn't get through because there were big trees down on the ground, and we couldn't get our trucks to where they needed to be in some cases. So we're continuing to work on those sort of things, and I agree. I think it's kind of a all hands on deck community situation that we need to work on.
Thank you, Tiffany and Ken and Alex, thank you. Thank you very much for your time today. And I think staff has some notes for us on follow-up. We have committed to emergency preparedness as an initiative here. And I think we've identified some things that we want to stay aware of and want to continue to do some more work on and engage our citizens. A theme that is important is, you're right, no one can do all of this for everyone else. It's all hands on deck from every single angle.
Yeah.
I think that is, we're at time on this presentation, and we'll keep the lines of communication open and stay in touch. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let us know if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And now we'll move to community citizen input and community announcement. This is an opportunity for visitors to address the City Council on items not on the agenda. It is also the time to address items that are on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Staff and the City Council make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizens' input before tonight's meeting ends, or as quickly as possible thereafter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and use the raise hand feature of Zoom to let us know you would like to provide comment. Do we have any citizens?
Yes, Mayor, we have 2 individuals in our virtual lobby. First up is Christopher Shatola Hart.
Thank you.
And I will note that both of them have entered their address into the record, so they don't need to share that publicly.
Thank you. And you have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Christopher Shatola Hart. I live at 28702 Southwest Glenwood Circle here in Wilsonville, and I am the president of the Wilsonville Arts and Culture Council, also known as WAC. We are a 501c3 cultural nonprofit organization that brings arts and culture and enriches lives of people in Wilsonville. We create opportunities and venues, platforms for visual, performing, and literary artists living or working in our community to share their work with the community. Essentially, we connect neighbors with artists. And as have so many other organizations, WAC had to cancel our major events during this time of COVID. Our signature event, the Wilsonville Festival of Arts, it's been going on since the late 90s. We have had to cancel 2 of our large festivals, and we've had to adapt to this era of COVID. And for us, that meant revamping our website to better accommodate and offer virtual amenities and offerings to the community so that we could continue with our mission here in Wilsonville. Just real quick run through of the things that we've been focused on, going all the way back to fall of 2020. We were producers of the Be About Love Festival, and we brought many of the performing artists that we were going to feature in our Wilsonville Festival of Arts, and we created a virtual festival. We offered a Dream Beyond COVID juried visual art show that was open to students and hobbyists and professional artists, all dreaming about what was to come after COVID. We have the Wilsonville Citizens Portrait Project, which my colleague Troy Matthews will tell you about. In the summer, we had the Wilsonville Summer Performance Series. We had music of 3 genres. We had an indigenous Aztec dance group. We had Wilsonville Stage presenting an exciting program. And this fall, we are involved in teaming with Wilsonville High School of Fine Art and the Mecha Club there in their production of the Dia de los Muertos Festival, and our role will be bringing that festival more into the broader community. And we are also involved bringing all of the cultural nonprofits of Wilsonville together in a summit, and we are having exciting panel discussions, positioning ourselves to partner with the city in its adoption of the arts, culture, and heritage strategy. And we're especially excited too about the eventual cultural center. So we are really, really excited to team with all of you and appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you, Christopher. Appreciate that. I got to see some of the performances this summer. So we appreciate that, and we have another presenter, I believe.
Yes, next up is Mr. Troy Matthews. Is that it, so? No other public comment?
Hello there. Hi there, I'm Troy Matthews. I am the art teacher at Wood Middle School, and I'm also a board member of Wilsonville Art and Cultural Council. And I want to tell you about our community portrait project. In 2019, we started this project trying to find out who are helpers in our community that make Wilsonville great and make it a special place. And we wanted to try to honor them with our art student skills. And so the middle school and the high school teamed up, and we sent out a survey to the community through parent group emails, our school websites, and our newsletters, and through the Boons Ferry Messenger. And we got a whole bunch of submissions of nominations of amazing people in Wilsonville that should be honored. And then we got someone to take photographs of them and collect their stories of these helpers. And then the students learned some skills on how to draw portraitures and come up with some amazing portraits of people in our community that are going to be on tour and go and be in local businesses around our community, telling their story and showing off our students' art. We have a few more. These are just a collection of a few of the students that made these works, and we have so many more that we want to show off and share. We're hoping to have a community celebration of our helpers, socially distanced, of course, and a celebration of the students' art, but we're looking for a location, and we were hoping to have this in early October so that most of the students can make it out and it's still decent weather. And we were hoping that maybe that we could request to have access to Art Tech High School to host this. And then we also want to invite all of the council members to there and possibly see if anyone would like to give some remarks about these amazing individuals and our amazing students' artwork that has happened over this crazy time called the pandemic.
Wow, thank you. That's fantastic. As far as the Art Tech High School, I would ask, I don't know the particulars of that, the city manager to follow up with you about what's possible there.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that we are doing an update to our facilities master plan, and the discussion about future use of that facility. Obviously, arts and culture is on the list of topics to be added to possible uses in the future. But we will definitely dialogue with you as we go about that.
And I think he was asking about a short-term, one-day use, maybe. And
yeah, so you can just contact me directly, and we'll see if we can work something out. There's obviously liability and legal issues we'd have to iron out, but we're certainly willing to partner.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we will now move to councilor comments, liaison reports, and meeting announcements, starting with Council President Ockervall.
Thank you. Mayor Fitzgerald mentioned our community block party that happened in August, and I just wanted to echo some of her comments about that. I agree, it was really nice to see some of our community businesses and our city departments with their booths and presentations and activities, and of course the many residents that were sharing in those activities and exchanging information together. And, you know, I think that those connection points are really important, but I also appreciate so much that I saw so many people wearing masks at the event, even though it was before the new outdoor mask rules had taken effect. People were taking that extra step to keep community members safe and be able to continue in sharing those connection points where we can. So that was nice to be part of that. And I recently visited the Family Empowerment Center, which is operated by our school district. And I think they had a kickoff actually in August. I believe that SMART was part of that and our library was part of that. Because of course we all serve the same families in our community. But I did a tour this week with Maria Horton to learn more about the needs that she's seeing in the community and the work that they're doing there. The vision of the center is to empower families to become active advocates in their children's education through culturally responsive, holistic approach. And you know what, the work that is happening there, it goes way beyond like a school supply handout or drive or something like this. It's connecting families to all sorts of different resources that cross with some of the support and services that the city provides as well. There's food and clothing, some mental health resources. There was a bookshelf with books for children and families in our community. They're also looking at offering some classes and assistance with technology too, looking at the ability of community members and their comfort with engaging in technology and how that serves their ability to engage with their students on their education and also employment opportunities. And so there was a lot to learn about what's happening there. And I appreciated seeing that and kind of, you know, starting to imagine some of the ways that all of our work intersects and overlaps and how we can help each other too. So that was great. School is back in session. I think there's a lot of mixed feelings on that, but I am very happy for all these students and families and parents and teachers that they're putting so much into this school year. You know, and I just wish everyone their best. Our screen background this evening Councilor Lehan in my screen is, I believe this was suggested or supplied by our SMART department. And the very small print, which is kind of hard to read, says school routes are everywhere. So this was a nod to safe routes to schools. And this is a super important thing for everyone in the community to be thinking about. If you have kids going to school and walking to school at this point, and it's very fresh in your mind that it's the start of the school year, or if you don't, we're all sharing the same spaces. And this morning, we had a truck go barreling down our street. I promise you folks, it is not worth it to try and shave off a few seconds on your commute. It's so important that we're all very aware of these young students that are walking to school and biking to school. And so I encourage our community members to really be thinking about that and be aware. Take it slow. And then I also wanted to call out the Boons Ferry Messenger this month. Much of our earlier discussion with the representatives from PGE, looking at emergency preparedness, there was a lot of great information in our Boons Ferry Messenger issue this month, all focused on what we can each do and breaking things, ideas down into bite-sized bits that you can try and mark off some of those tasks and those gathering supplies and making plans and reviewing plans with your family members and making sure that you're prepared for things like pets and all of the different aspects that we each have in our lives. So I hope that people are paying attention to that and maybe taking a couple things off the list this month as we all improve our situation. So thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilor Lehan.
I wanted to also compliment everyone who was involved in the Town Center Block Party. It really was a lot of fun and relaxing to be out there with citizens and in that atmosphere. And I want to especially compliment the parks folks who brought all of the little plants for milkweed plants that they were giving away left and right to help the monarch butterfly. But also, whoever it was, I don't know if it was Public Works or the parks people, who brought the lawnmowers, because that was really the big hit of the thing. Frequently at our block parties, we have fire equipment and police cruisers and stuff, but I never saw anything as popular as these big lawnmower things that every kid wanted to climb on and have their picture taken on. They're yellow and green, and anyway, they made great pictures, and everybody wanted to be on them. So thanks for bringing those exciting pieces of equipment over to Town Center for people to see up close. And then only other thing is I will invite people yet again for the last time to the Walnut Orchard dedication for a state heritage tree dedication, which will be next Thursday, a week from today at 11 a.m. and at Marassi, near the barn where the orchard comes up to the barn. And one of the reasons to come is we will have the nut dryer open, which is always locked up tight as a drum. It will be open. You'll be able to go in and see the original furnace that is inside there. And so that's worth stopping by anyway. 11 o'clock a week from today. Assuming it's not 115 degrees or a hurricane strikes or something. So we'll hope that we don't have to cancel. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor Lehan. Councilor West.
Thank you, Your Honor. Want to remind everybody that if you are interested in applying for the Citizens Academy here in Wilsonville. I believe your application needs to be in by the 31st of October. Am I right?
Correct.
I think I'm right. Yeah. And so if anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's an amazing opportunity that's been really successful to get to know how local government, city government works, different ways to engage in your community, to kind of make it your own, to be part of the process. And there's all kinds of interactive activities and learning opportunities and group activities that allow you to work within a team to figure out ways to have better outcomes for Wilsonville. So it's been really successful. We've seen it just grow and grow and grow, and a lot of people apply, and there's limited space. So get your name in and try to get in there. If you've applied in the past and maybe didn't get in because there's just so many people, apply again, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. And it goes over a period of months, and you get to see the water treatment plant up close. You get to go to the state capitol. Now, I don't know if some of the stuff will be different because we're still dealing with pandemic stuff, but it is a great opportunity, so I encourage you to do that. Apply. You can go to the website, Wilsonville's website, City of Wilsonville's website, and you can apply to do that. I had a great opportunity not that long ago, in between our meetings, to be a featured speaker at a young man's Eagle Scout ceremony. And there were a number of people in the community there. This young man, he had earned over, I think, 50 merit badges, which is quite the accomplishment. And he was quite decorated, and he really had done a lot of access service for our community. So it's those young people that engage in that way and make those commitments to make their community better and engage civically and give back, that are really the best of us. So it's young men like that that make me think that Wilsonville's future is very bright. His name is Corbin. He just turned 18 and just got his Eagle Scout, and it was an honor to be a part of that with him and his family and a number of people in our community. And then a football update, because that's what I'm spending a lot of time, is everyone's back to school. My kid plays football, and high school is in full swing, and so is elementary and junior high, so everybody's back in school. But Wilsonville won its first game against Lebanon, and tomorrow night everybody's traveling to go to Pendleton because we will play our first away game in Pendleton, Oregon. So our family will be leaving early tomorrow to go out and be part of that process. It just happens to be the day before the roundup, which is nuts. But so if you get a chance, check out a football game. And that's kind of, I guess, what I have for my counselor comments.
Thank you. Councilor Linville.
There, I'm unmuted. I'm going to limit my comments this evening to give the council and our community an update on the status of the the Willamette Falls locks and the commission and the work that is ahead. And just as a background, just a bit of a background, the Oregon Legislative Assembly passed in the 2021 legislative session House Bill 2564 that establishes the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. And this is a public corporation that will be established to own, manage, and provide oversight of the locks. There are only two other public entities that are like this in the state of Oregon. One of them is OHSU, and the other is the Oregon Fair Board. So it is a bit of a unique situation. The Oregon Legislative Assembly passed also Senate Bill 5534, which authorizes issuance of lottery bonds and appropriates money in the amount of $7 million for the new authority for operational expenses in repair of the locks. And that will not be it will not be funding to operate the authority over time, but rather to allow the authority to complete the repair on the locks. And just as a little bit of background, the Corps of Engineers have been the responsible entity for managing the locks as they've been closed down, and they have been doing maintenance and repair. So the Corps of Engineers reported that Senator Merkley and Congressman Schrader secured for them an additional $6.2 million earmarked in federal energy and water appropriations bill for seismic retrofitting and repair of the locks. And the Corps of Engineers will issue a solicitation package and award construction contracts in 2022, and that repair will take about 12 to 18 months to complete. That will not be the total amount of repairs that will need to be made. That additional $7 million from the state will go toward additional repairs. But the seismic repairs that are going to be done by the Corps of Engineers will be done before they transfer the ownership of the locks to the authority, to the locks authority. And then I sit on the Willamette Falls Locks Commission. And there was an additional Senate bill or House bill that now moves the functions of the commission to really setting up the authority board, nominating applicants to the governor, and assisting with the transfer of the locks from the Corps of Engineers to the new authority. And the commission is due to sunset now, June 30th of 2022. So I will be out of that responsibility as of that point. One of the things that we talked about at the commission meeting was how do we get the members recommended to the governor for the authority, for the locks authority. And they're looking at recommending an authority or a board of 7 to 11 persons. And they will be responsible to, as a volunteer group, unpaid, to manage the locks, get the repairs done, and open the locks up and operate them. A smaller group from the commission will do some of that work and make a recommendation to the commission here probably in the next few weeks, and I volunteered to assist with that process. The governor, the appointments to the authority have to be made by the governor by December 8th, and then by January 1, the authority will be stood up and running, and the transfer will be done. So one of the things that I think is an implication for us, although I was not on the council at the time that the Locks Commission was put in place, the city of Wilsonville was one of the charter members that of the river cities that made up the commission. And we have been a supporter of the commission over time. And during, I think, one of the last acts that was done under the final year of Mayor Knapp's tenure was, and a decision made by the council was to commit $7,000 a year for 5 years to the ongoing operation of the lock. And because a council, a previous council cannot obligate a future council, this, our ongoing support will have to be determined by this council, and the commission is asking at this point for us to determine whether we will forward that amount or some other amount to the ongoing commission and the authority as it continues to open up the locks. So they don't anticipate that they're going to need our money until June, but they said they would take it any time after January 1 when the authority is up and running. So this, I think, will need to be brought to the council. I think maybe that I'll have a conversation with the mayor and the city manager about how we would move that forward and bring back to the council some kind of a recommendation. And unless you have any questions, that's my report.
I was muted. Thank you, Councilor Linville, for your great work on that and fantastic results. And I think we will ask City Manager, well, we'll talk together and probably come up with another council work session discussion on that. So thank you. That brings us now to the consent agenda. And I am open to a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I just need to read it for you first.
Yes,
minutes of the August 16, 2021 City Council meeting.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Your Honor, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second. Do I have a Councilor?
Yes, I'll second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. We've got our mutes on. Any discussion? No, we don't need discussion on the consent. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And moving to new business, we have a resolution 2922, and would the I believe we have a staff report.
Yes, let me read the resolution for you before the staff report. Resolution number 2922, a resolution adopting collective bargaining agreement between the City of Wilsonville and Wilsonville Municipal Employees Association.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Gina Troja. I'm the Assistant City Manager, and I'll keep my presentation real short tonight. The item in front of you is the adoption of the collective bargaining agreement between the Wilsonville Employee Municipal Association, we call them WILMEA, and the city. This agreement is a 3-year collective bargaining agreement. As you are aware, we have 2 unions in the city, SEIU, who represents our transit employees and fleet employees, and then our general unit, which is WILMEA. In June, you approved the collective bargaining agreement with SEIU, and then the agreement before you tonight is the collective bargaining agreement with WILMEA. All of the details about the agreement are in your packet, including the red line version. So you've got those as well. If you've got questions, I'm happy to answer those. I would say that, collective bargaining just by itself it's a difficult process. It's a challenging process. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of time. It took a little bit longer with this union, but I want to take a moment to really thank the association's bargaining team, Tommy Reeder and Michael Carr. They spent a lot of hours, and there was a lot of give and take to get to the agreement that's in front of you tonight. So I appreciate the time that they spent on this. I appreciate the time that our management team spent, and so I think it's a contract that I think everybody should be proud of. So that's just before you tonight, and I'm happy to answer questions.
I'm not seeing any hands raised unless I'm missing them. Ms. Troha, I wanted to thank you for your report and also for the great work of our city employees in this union. It's been how many times have we said what an incredible year it has been? But it couldn't be more true. And we really appreciate their dedication, and I'm glad that the contract is completed. So if there are no more questions, I would entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2922.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 2922.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. That brings us to continuing business, ordinance number 849 on second reading. Could the city attorney please read the ordinance?
Yes, ordinance number 849 on second reading, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville making certain determinations and findings related to and approving a single property urban renewal plan for economic development purposes known as the Twist Bioscience Wilsonville Investment Now Win Zone. I would just note for the record that I've spoken with Mr. Namsu and we have received no comments between the last reading and this reading.
All right, so I'm going to call to order the Wilsonville City Council second reading on ordinance number 849 as has been read. And although city council meetings are open to the public, this meeting may also be attended remotely in accordance with Oregon law. Information regarding how the public can attend this meeting remotely is posted at City Hall and on the city's website. Public testimony was closed after the first reading. Does any member of the council have any questions for staff or the city attorney on ordinance number 849? Okay, hearing no further questions, do I have a motion on ordinance number 849? Councilor Linder.
Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance number 849 on second reading.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing no further discussion on commentary, I hereby call the question on the motion as made and seconded. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Wait, that brings us to city manager's business.
Well, I just want to say thank you all for being flexible. You have, maybe it's like riding a bike, you've reacclimated to Zoom meetings very well. I think we're getting pretty good at these. I wish that we could all be back together again, and so I hope that people take the opportunity to read up on vaccinations and make the right choice there. Secondly, I wanted to just let you know that we're going to be bringing the ARA fund discussion to you at the next meeting, and we'll be bringing some criteria that we've developed at the executive team level, talking about what the safe harbor areas for the use of those funds, and maybe bringing some projects that you could use to fund those projects that we are bringing to you in terms of a recommendation. So, excuse me, it's hard to breathe in these masks. That's all I have, Mayor. Hope to see you all back in the chamber soon.
Thank you very much. We're doing everything we can. I think every single person has that power. So I would like to ask the city attorney if there's any legal business.
There's no legal business to cover tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I will adjourn the meeting at 9:12 p.m.